Hi, I'm Martin Tyson. I'm the Head of Regulation and Improvement at the Scottish Charity Regulator, or OSCA, and I'm really glad to be able to speak to you today about our priorities for dealing with fraud in charities. I think the first big thing I'd say is that everyone has a part to play in the fight against charity fraud, whether it's charity trustees, it's employees of charities, beneficiaries, the general public, uh, auditors and independent examiners, and of course us as the regulator. But what we particularly want to talk about today are the roles of trustees and of auditors and independent examiners in identifying and reporting fraud. The big picture here is that every pound lost to fraud is a pound that can't be spent on a charity's charitable purposes. Public trust and confidence in the sector relies on good governance in charities, and tackling fraud and being vigilant and looking after the charity's assets is a vital component. Now, charity trustees have a particular responsibility in taking steps to protect the charity they're working for, protecting charitable assets, acting in the interests of the charity, and acting with due care and diligence are key parts of their duties. In terms of fraud, what that means is staying vigilant in the fight against fraud. And part of that is being aware of where the risks are. Invest in training, invest in making sure that you're aware of what's going on, what the trends are out there, and invest in knowing what preventive action you can take. And that includes all the resources that are being provided as part of Fraud Awareness Week. And once you know what those preventive actions are, once you know what the resources are, make sure that you take advantage of them. The big thing here is that there's no moral protection for charities from fraudsters. Fraudsters don't care if an organisation's part of government, if it's a private business or it's a charity. What they're interested in is vulnerability. They're interested in easy victims. A good analogy is burglars checking every door in the street. The ones that are open, the doors that are open, or where a house is easy to break into, they'll be the victims. And the same goes for fraud and the different types of fraud. At OSCA, we're particularly concerned about cybercrime at the moment. Through the lockdown and all of the restrictions that have hung on after it, charities have started doing a lot more of their activity online. And that's a good thing. That's adaptability. That's the sector's resilience in the face of what they've had to deal with. But what it means is there are a lot more opportunities for people who have bad intentions to exploit those new ways of working. There's more opportunity for fraudsters. There's been a rise, for instance, in ransomware, and that's a type of malicious software that's designed to block legitimate users' access to a computer system until the sum of money is paid. And an example of that would be the Blackboard attack that happened during lockdown. The other thing that we've particularly noticed is a rise in reports of phishing. That's phishing with a PH rather than an F. If you haven't heard of that, that's where emails are sent to organisations, particularly charities, and those emails claim to be from reputable companies or organisations, and they actually look quite realistic. Their job is to appear plausible. The idea there is to get people to reveal information which can then be exploited, or simply they'll be asking for urgent payments to be made. These attacks, they depend on plausibility. So one of the scams that we've had reported to us was emails being sent to finance staff in charities, pretending to be from the chief executive officer or a senior staff member, and asking for an urgent payment to be made. Now, there's a lot of good advice online about dealing with phishing attacks and particularly recognizing them. But I think some of the key things are, look at the email address. It may look like the email address of someone that you know, but it might not be quite right. And if there's something there that doesn't look quite right, trust that. Again, there might be a logo that looks like it might be a company that you know, but it's not quite. Or the context is odd. Why would your chief executive be emailing you at 2 o'clock in the morning and asking you to make a payment? So I think with all those things, trust your gut. If it looks odd, then follow that up, think about it, and exercise due caution. Because some of the phishing scams that we've seen reported to us, that involved substantial sums, and some of the payments were recurring and happened over a period of time. If the worst happens, if you do have an external or an internal fraud or cybercrime happen to you, it's really important that you report that to the police and to us or the whoever your regulator is. We do understand there might be some fear around reporting those matters, or embarrassment. It's an awkward thing to deal with, and it's an awkward thing to be saying to a third party, we have been a victim of this. But I think the point is, and the key thing about the way that we look at it, a charity that's been a victim of fraud is just that. It's a victim of a crime, and that's how we look at it. Reporting to us is helpful. Reporting to us is part of what a good trustee does. It helps us to understand the picture of fraud and crime that are relating to charities. It helps us to understand what the charities are doing to combat and recover and prevent fraud. And what that means is that we can provide resources and signposting to help other charities, to help the rest of the sector to safeguard against those crimes. I think another aspect of that is the duties of auditors and independent examiners of charities. They have a role to play in helping us in this battle. Every time an auditor or an independent examiner is carrying out an examination of a charity's accounts, they should be bearing in mind the signs of fraud, looking out for those. And where there are indications of fraud, there's a legal obligation on auditors and examiners to report those to OSCR. That's a vital role. It helps us, again, to pinpoint where the risks are in the sector. And especially where there's evidence of external fraud, it helps us so we can highlight the signs to charities and to other professional advisors, and it helps us prevent other fraudulent activity. If we all play our part there, we can help build the resistance and the resilience of the sector to charity fraud. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks very much.